I love when music tells a story. Going all the way back to high school, anytime albums had stories or motifs or any sort of arc whatsoever, I'd get so hyped. Like, I'd feel more connected to it. It felt deeper, more inviting, like they were trying to bring me into a world. And it's crazy how much the music I've listened to changed me. It's super impacted the things I've thought about and the questions that I wrestle with, which is why I want to share this album with you, the Idyll Opus by Adjy. Now, the connecting thread to this channel is that the whole album is one single story. I thought it'd be cool to take a deep dive into it. Who knows? Could be weird. If the name The Idyll Opus alone doesn't pique your ears, let's unpack that story a bit. The album tells a teenage love story of two characters, a boy called June and a girl named July. But their story is nested in a book, which is then read to us by another character referred to as the alchemist, who believes that there is something in the story of June and July that is the key to bring back the life of his twin. If you just listen to it, you're probably not going to catch all those details. On first pass, the specifics of the plot aren't super clear, which is usually a problem, at least in film. But any plot exists to serve the emotional connection to the story. Generally, you need to know what's going on in order to feel connected to the characters. But what's kind of crazy in music is you don't need the plot to be emotionally moved. Adjy is well aware that this is an album, not a film. The tools used to tell the story are different. You have sound, music, poetry, narration, which used to be the way to tell stories, seen in most, if not all, ancient mythologies. The thing that's so powerful about telling a story through these poetic snapshots is that within each line there's layers of meaning that you can get from it. Like, what's cool is on the surface it's not overly pretentious or alienating. It's a teen love story that'll make you dance. But while being accessible, there's still a depth of narrative that keeps you thinking, curious, asking some pretty intense questions. So that's my sell before I start digging into this analysis. If you're intrigued, go listen. And there are differing layers of participation in that. On the top level, they're fun, dancey, emotionally engaging songs. It's a good time. The next level is the themes and motifs that you can start picking out, and will move you through the story emotionally. If you want to go even deeper, the text of the album is up on their website and is laid out in a way so you can specifically see who is talking at any given time, which will start shedding light on the tension between the four voices in dialogue. And if you really want to start jumping off the cliff, you get Wikipedia, you got Google open, you just start digging into the world, taking apart all the ancient classic and Near Eastern mythology, uncovering the alchemic and Freemasonic symbols, and link all that hidden meaning to the conflicts that befall June, July, and the alchemist. Then if you hit the ground at the bottom of that cliff and you see a cave and you want to go deeper, there's codes, there's musical and numerological and astrological links that just present themselves to be unraveled. The point is, it's exhaustively crafted and seems to be desperately telling the story from every angle possible. So this story makes me feel a lot, which is why I wanted to share it. I didn't know the breadth of content until I started really diving into this. As I analyzed, more started coming to the surface. So I'm going to go as deep as I see because I feel like it'd be dishonest otherwise. I think this story is about the complicated tension between spirit and body, otherwise called life and art, living, creating. So what do I mean by any of that? Well, art is a good illustration of this. You start with an idea, which doesn't have a body. It's a feeling, an idea, maybe a purpose. And when you sit down to paint, you are now giving that idea a body, which probably doesn't capture everything that the idea felt like. But if you pay close enough attention and are aware of what is closer and further away to the spirit of it, you will give body to that feeling. Like language, a word is a body for an idea. Form that expresses the formless. The thematic underpinning of this story is to demonstrate the tension between living and creating. And while you can't get away from the limitations of being a body, if you focus on it alone, the material, the symbol, the work of art, the opus, separated from the spirit, the purpose, the life that created it, you'll be spending your life on a dead thing, also referred to as an idol. And if you attempt to make a body last forever, you will be sacrificing your spirit. Well, that sounds complicated. How is a love story about any of that? First, let's break it down to its structural beats. First, we start with the hook. in medias res, literally telling us that we're starting in the middle of the action. Seeing as this album is the first half of a whole larger project, it's not entirely clear chronologically where this moment in time is happening, but we're thrown into the world of the alchemist, who's desperately trying to freeze time in the moment of presence he felt with his twin, scouring through June and July's story to save his own. And now back to the beginning, where we're introduced to June, his character and his longing for connection with another. As the school year ends, he's excited for a road trip with his friends to a music festival in the Midwest. The inciting incident happens where June meets July, who joins the caravan last minute. The first half of the second act happens over the course of the festival, building to this ideal moment of presence between the two characters, relating as individuals who find it difficult to connect and be intimate with others, while talking about and uncovering what drives them to live and to make art. The more that they start seeing their conflicts and beliefs unexpectedly harmonize, the more they start falling in love, which climaxes at an intense moment of aliveness, as if they're in Eden. Then comes the midpoint reversal. The tone shifts, the trip ends, summer is coming to an end. We are no longer in a present moment with them. June now follows July back to the city, where it becomes increasingly obvious that their desperate clinging to this moment that they had is slipping through their fingers. The first half of this album is fun, is dancey, it's a true delight to listen to. The second half of the album is sad and weighty and scary. Even in analyzing this, I love being a part of A Boy Called June and the first 7 songs of Where June Meets July. But every single time that I would see that the next song to look at was Secretus Liber, I'd feel sad and things would feel big. I longed to be at the beginning of the album again. It's probably no coincidence that that's exactly what's happening in the story. June is characterized as being a wild-eyed young man restless to be in the moment. He idealizes living loudly and honestly, constantly pushing boundaries. All of his lines are soaked with this idea of presence, for there was no time but now. Whereas July is a writer who longs for perfect moments. She's intelligent and knows about a lot. She's sentimental and collects keepsakes. June constantly explores and seeks purpose. July deeply wants to know and capture it. In essence, June values being immersed in the spirit of a thing. July values bottling up that spirit into a body. So naturally, the story starts picking up steam when July reveals the curious, free-spirited, witty individual that she really is. Like Clarice McClellan from the book Fahrenheit 451. June then questions her why she's chosen the life that she's chosen, boarded up in the culture of the city. If there's anything that June abhors, it's cages. A question he poses repeatedly is, can you fence life in? Life exists in novelty for him. The exploration of a new thing and the growth, humility, and wonder that comes along with it. And to experience novelty, you have to cross the boundary of the known and familiar. There are no boundaries of should for June. Because like he said, a good why dares any how. This is why it's difficult for June to connect with others. He doesn't fit within their frames. Presence and life requires breaking boundaries. In order to fit in, you have to accept and live within pressured, ill-defined social boundaries. And if you reject the cages of protocol, just by the nature of living your life, you're going to push social boundaries, which in turn will make those who adhere to those rules uncomfortable. Like how Ferris Bueller's sister resents how he always gets away with not playing by the rules that she feels like she has to. But for June, it's the only way to live. Because true connection happens when presence meets presence. This is what we see in the blossoming of their relationship. He wistfully asks, if I run with my whole heart, can you catch it? And then later the narrator playfully notes, she kept up as they ran to Georgia. Their vulnerability of expressing with their whole heart allows real knowing. I think it's what we call falling in love. And it doesn't just happen in romantic connection. I always like to think of the captain in Wall-E when I think of love and presence. When he stays up all night, blown away by the earth, he's not thinking about anything else. He's not strategizing. He's not filtering his thoughts. He's here and now, in wonder, present, and love, which is everything that June pushes her to lean into. He sheepishly tells her, you're so fast. Don't hold back. And then that evening, with fireflies dancing and silver moons sparkling, she trust falls into the relationship. I love this part, where June pulls an embarrassed July into dance, and then she finally casts off her shoes and spins free in messy, wet hair macrame. June shows us the importance of our spirit, the essence of you, unsanded, unfiltered, rough, and messy. Our only means to connect. Like take the converse example, two-couple game night. Everything's pretty nice and friendly. You're not trying to offend each other. Everyone's kind of filtering what they're saying because they're afraid of what the other's going to think. You're probably not going to feel hyper close to the other couple. Because there's a reason why when you get in the car, you vent to your significant other what you were really thinking about. Some is nice, some is not so nice. But you're more okay showing those unsanded parts of yourself to people you are closer to. You feel exhausted after the game night because it is exhausting to filter yourself, keep track of your thoughts, be worried about offending, you're afraid of how they're gonna think, how it's gonna make you feel or look. And then that's why it's also life-giving when you have the courage to express yourself in all of it. Your grossness, your half thought through thoughts, it's life-giving. When you willingly risk embarrassment, failure, maybe even alienation, to authentically act out something that you really believe in, you're expressing the wildness in you and opening up the door for another to respond in turn. But we can't fully know each other. The problem is we exist in bodies. I can't just plug my head into yours. I have to use words. I have to use art in order to translate my perspective as best I can. I have to embody in order to express. This is July's entire counter-argument. We need a vessel to understand and deliver meaning. So if June's question to her is, can you fence life in if life, like wind, is the movement of the air, not the air moving? She asks back, can you know the wind unless you cup your hand and for a moment hold a part of it? Later in that song she cries, a song, a flame, tied in the skin of words so that we can feel it burn. You can't reject the limitations of the material because without it, you're an isolated experience consumed by the immense complexity of everything that possibly is. So much so that I don't really even know what that means. Our entire reality is only experienced through the limits of our bodies. It's why worldviews tend to be different. What you think existence is, your cosmology, is mapped out by the tiny little slice you experience within the limits of your body. You have to accept those limitations and then use them as best as you can to express your shapeless thoughts and feelings. When our actions and language are true to our flame, we feel life and are able to express our spirit and be known. Just think of the stories that have lasted for hundreds and thousands of years. They have a liveliness to them, a reaching, writhing out from their heart with a pen quality to it. The art embodied a flame. It's a relationship, and it must be in right tension. A pen to draw the shapeless, a breath to shape the pen. With spirit, the body is present. With body, the spirit can express and be known. But all of it hinges on honesty. Expressing nakedly is vulnerable. We clothe ourselves, lie about what's underneath, hiding who we are by embodying more acceptable spirits that motivate what we do and what we think. Because we don't want people too close to us to tell us we're wrong, to kill parts of us. Death is a weird and necessary part of growth and life. To grow, a seed has to be buried in a grave, break its body, and become something new. Like the maple seed June gives to July. It's fitting then for her character to keep it and turn it into a necklace. The whole album pivots around this moment of June and July watching a cicada emerge from its shell. To become a full cicada, a nymph has to shed its dead skin. We tend to hold tightly the clothes that protect us, so much so that they start becoming a part of our perceived identity. And when that is challenged, we feel that part of us is threatened. But more often than not, that part of you needs to die to let the rest of you grow, to cross boundaries, to experience life again. And it's those moments of life, energy, breakthrough that creates art. There's a spirit of wonder, energy, vibrancy that you want to capture and share. Like falling in love. How many songs are about falling in love? A lot. It's like we experience these pure moments of presence and potential and have too much inside and just have to put it somewhere. Like a shell left behind that only points to the spirit that left it. What it wanted, what it valued, and at what cost. It's safe to stay in your shell. It's familiar. To become new, you have to break out, which means you'll eventually get caught. The cicada accepts death to fully live. Leaving a body that long after summer's breath expires is a note that we can hold in our hands. The problem is that this is terrifying. The history of humanity is this reoccurring pattern of individuals and entire societies who would rather spend their time building monuments and mausoleums to the dead. As the album continues now, we relate to each character in their struggle to keep some part of them unnaturally alive. We are now in the moment after. Buses are leaving, we're going home, the summer is coming to a close. The song Secretus Liber starts with July's longing. Can I stay here? Can I stay in this moment? It's weird where we can see old religious language relating to how we live now. I think it's often too easy to compartmentalize magic-y, weird religious stuff as this altogether weird thing over there. We don't understand the language for its function. So we minimize it and say that ancient people didn't know better. Whereas they were probably just trying to put to words why anyone does anything. What motivates us and what ultimately our actions create. So bear with me as I try to connect these ideas. Historically, an idol serves as a lifeless image that you make sacrifices to in order to get something that you want. You want plentiful harvest or victory in war. Now relate that to the plight of the alchemist. There is a moment of presence in his life that he experienced with his twin. He wants to live in that moment forever. So he sacrifices all of his time to try to bring him back to life. While we don't relate to sacrificing animals to the gods, like the alchemist, we do sacrifice a lot of our time to various causes. Or spirits. And I don't mean ghosty, semi-transparent, floaty guys. Like, we use this language all the time. That joke was in the spirit of Austin. The spirit of the crowd was cynical. I mean, we have Spirit Week at school in an effort to, align our focus towards some unified mood or energy so that we can vanquish the other pitiful middle schools. If you want to invigorate a spirit of generosity around the holidays, you probably sacrifice your time giving to those less privileged. Or you probably sacrifice a lot of your time to make sure the spirit of your home is warm and welcoming. The Greeks called her Hestia, the goddess of hearth and home. Religious mythic language describes where our focus is and what our efforts create, what motivates us. Or you could say, what god you serve. The dangerous thing with idols, though, is that they're lifeless. Made of wood or stone, or metal, or paper, or paint, or music, or pixels. They are a shell. They don't in of themselves embody a life. What gives them any life at all is you spending your limited time, attention, and action creating them. In essence, you're sacrificing yourself so it may live. July's aim is to be a published writer. She tells June in Secretus Liber that she found a half-written book that she wants to finish and give it the life that she believes it deserves, which is why she's stuck in the city. Let's stop and break that down a bit, because why would anyone need their art to be published in a place with a lot of people? You could finish an art project and share and express it whenever you want, wherever you want, but that could more easily fall flat and die. She obviously wants it to garner praise and renown, because the things that are praiseworthy live longer. And as someone who has confronted death through her childhood illness, it stands to reason that she would cling on to make something last. And so, wanting to make this opus last forever, she now sacrifices everything for this book, aka an idol. As she says, it became the world to her. And now with the trip ending, she also wants the connection and freedom and direction that they have to last. So she asks June to come to the city with her so that she can finish the book and they can be together, promising that they can change the spirit there. On the other hand, June and the alchemist are now slowly becoming clone characters of each other. June now losing this moment with July is akin to the alchemist losing his time with his twin. And their focus shifts to reinvigorate the flame that they once knew. Will a summer like this ever come again, June asks. Both longing to keep alive dead moments. Idols. Turns out they couldn't impact the city as they had hoped. July started giving more and more of herself to fit in, so that she could gain acceptance and respect. The alchemist comments, "To mend our ships, we use the sails," set Thesean, pointing out that June and July compromised parts of themselves to afford living, alluding to the thought experiment that asks, if you replace every part of a ship, is it the same ship? When they keep compromising who they are, at what point are June and July different people? The city pushes June to his breaking point. He has a difficult time justifying who they are becoming and can no longer feign a bow. He unleashes that July isn't who she used to be. You, queen of open wood, pride of the pack, who danced manic under the moon. Now you beg for treats and beg to speak in renowned public gatherings. You've been domesticated by the potential judgment of your peers. You make pretty the cage that you've walked yourself into. You let the focus of fame and title take away your sharp taste and liveliness. He exclaims, "But I can't hide my claws," and leaves the city, while July stays behind, continuing to sacrifice her spirit to extend the life of the book. Yet, still tied, he agrees to come back every summer to rekindle the moment that they had. And this happens for years, trying to hold on to that moment. Every summer together, every other month apart. And after many years of this revolving around each other, July's childhood illness resurfaces, and she's given a limited time to live, which is a wake-up call. She ponders, "Now my lint light night nears collect, have I pawned these years to avert the debt? This one time that I have to shine alive, did I sell those years away in order to get out of any responsibility to live now?" Her fear to lose parts of herself, to bury the maple seed, caused her to hold on too tightly to things that were long dead. She asks, "Is it old clothes that I've been so afraid to lose? Oh, can I fence life in? I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to fly like one of them." She wants to fly like a cicada, free and naked, which is what she chooses to do with the remaining time that she has, running back to June to dance foot free again, to finally plant the maple seed so it can die and become new, to fully accept her limitation, accept death so that she can fully live. June, on the other hand, can't let go so easily. For the last many years of his life, he's lived half sore, half fine. He kept circling back, trying to remember something he forgot. Summer after summer after summer, it's never the same, but he still can't let go. When she collapses in his arm, he begs to bring her back to the city so that they can try to keep her alive. He can't imagine a life without her. She is his whole world, and he longs so hard for the beginning of the album. Maybe we'll circle back. Maybe this time. Maybe then we'll feel the spirit that we felt then. The story ends with the alchemist relating this story to the patterns on patterns, stories on stories, rhyming again and again throughout history. Moments of presence, where purpose and expression align, lost in an attempt to capture it. He relates, "Should your drifting go down your parents' blood, know that the river's flow will become the flood." Repeating the patterns of our parents will always end in the same catastrophe. You won't become an individual, but another body that inhabits the spirit of the masses. He further laments, "On an endless loop till we get this right. Can you hide your head in the bed you chose when your wild heart knocks at the door you closed? Can you hide who you are, safe, comfortable, covered, holding tight to make this body last, when your spirit cries out from inside to be unveiled and freed?" Each of the characters long to keep pumping life into a body whose spirit is long gone, and the life that we see them using is their own. All of their physical and emotional effort is spent trying to keep something that they want alive. As the alchemist discovers, there is a way to his twin, but solvet coagula, arum quod es eris quod sum, which is Latin for "something must be destroyed to be created. I was what you are, you will be what I am." His time, his effort, his body is the means by which he can keep his twin spirit alive. This first half of the greater project that is the Idyll Opus is a cautionary tale, and an observation of cycles that have been repeated throughout much of history and myth. This pattern of presence lost, being thrown out of the garden, and our obsession and longing to find it, keep it, and control it. Attempting to make its body last forever. Erecting statues. Rather than living in spite of death, accepting the limited nature of our bodies and using them to express with our whole heart. When we hide away our vulnerability and our smallness, we put all of our efforts into safe things that we think will last. This story wants you to know that those things are dead to begin with, and they'll only live at the cost of you. That your effort to make the most idyllic opus is an attempt to make a spirit idle, which will become the idol that you bow to. To live fully, you must live like a cicada, presently, expressing a spirit of life, which is a spirit of truth, connection, and growth, and weirdly enough requires an acceptance of death. Like June says, to even learn, you must endanger what you already know. A throwing off of old clothes, pushing past previously held boundaries, being made new, like a maple sprout rising out of the ground.